speaker today, Dr. Zuckerberg. Just a few short things about Dr. Zuckerberg. A graduate of NYU in 1978. Has a private practice in Dobbs Ferry, New York, since 81, and has now moved to California. So regular lectures on this topic. So, and he's been lecturing for us before in Portugal. So we're happy to have you here now. So.
Thank you. Welcome. Hope everybody's having a good learning and fun day. It's the end of the day, so hopefully I will stimulate you just one more hour before the big party tonight and give you an aspect that you're probably not seeing in any great courses here this weekend. Everybody's being immersed in all these great surgical and prosthetic techniques. But the area I think that we'll all agree where the schools are most efficient in is in educating us to be businessmen and businesswomen as well as competent clinicians. So I'm hopefully going to give you a few pointers on that today about how to integrate all that great information to everything else you've learned today. So let's start by looking at conventional marketing. I did all this stuff. Dentists who've been around for a long time have done all this stuff too. I've been there with Valpak envelopes. I've been there with Clipper magazine. I can't believe these things are still around. Yellow Pages, Penny Saver, TV ads, radio ads. These things all have one thing in common, in that they're very generic in terms of us marketing our services. So that's the old way. We have a better way now, a way that will also enable you to not only save quite a few dollars, but have a much more effective campaign and direct your campaign not just to attracting new patients to your practice, but also educating your existing patients, building stronger bonds and relationships with the existing patients. And that new way is social media. And social media, like it or not, it's there. 75% of our patients are using Facebook. They're also using Twitter. They're also using Pinterest. They're also using Instagram. And I'm not saying you've got to get involved with all these, but I'm going to give you a topical knowledge of all of them and hopefully go into a little more depth in Facebook, because that's the area that you're most likely to have your patients engaging with your office on a daily basis. And I'll put a little disclaimer in here, even though I have a family member who has something to do with the company Facebook. I'm not an employee of the company. At one time I was known as Dr. Edward Zuckerberg, now I'm known as somebody's father. Although I did have a great experience. Last month I was lecturing at the South Dakota Dental Association meeting, and somebody raised their hand, and I do recommend, if you've got a question on a topic that I'm on, it's probably best to address it as long as you don't get bogged down, so I welcome questions during the presentation. And somebody raised their hand and said, I've heard of you before, and that's why I'm here, because I heard you were a good speaker, but who's this guy Mark, who you've made a couple of references to? So that was kind of cute. I started back in 1981 in my current location. I actually still practice in Dobbs Ferry in Westchester County, part-time now, and I have a full-time staff and associate who keeps the practice busy, and when I'm in California with my family and grandchildren. 1981, things were quite different. I heard a friend of mine who's building a house now who's complaining that interest rates are starting to move up again, 3.5%. Closing was delayed. He's going to have to pay 4% for his mortgage now. Our mortgage in 1981 was 17%. And I ultimately had to choose between two banks because nobody wanted to lend us even at that great rate, because they thought the rates were going to go even higher. Wound up settling with Citibank because Citibank had a pioneer program to do online banking. Online banking with an Atari computer. 1981, it was Atari 800 and Commodore 64, the only computers available for personal use. So I was all over that because I was always have been technology guru. So I can remember my first banking session online after I set this thing up, and we had this green amber monitor that loaded the screen one line at a time. It was almost like typing. And I ran downstairs to my wife so proudly after my first session was over, and I said, "You're not going to believe what I just did." And she said, "Okay, you look real excited about this." I said, "I just paid 3 bills online without writing a check, clicking an envelope, applying a postage stamp, and having to walk to the mailbox." And she said, "And how long did that take?" And I said, "About an hour." And she said, "Well, I think I could write 3 checks and have them in the envelope and out in 5 minutes." So she was looking kind of impressed. And I'm trying to say, if you get it, it's going to change the way things are done. God bless her. She told me to knock myself out, always supported me in my endeavors. I met with battles all along the way when I took away the paper appointment book from the staff and converted to a digital system. When I wired all the operatories so we could all talk to each other from room to room. And when everybody else was putting in those green, yellow, blue, red light systems that all meant something different. You know, Mrs. Jones is here, Mrs. Jones is pacing, Mrs. Jones has been here 30 minutes, the hygienist we need to come in now and examine my patient. Instead of that, my 12-year-old son wrote a program called ZuckNet, which we used, and my office is in the house. So we had a little inter-office thing going on as early as 1996. Where we were able to talk to each other from operatory to operatory. And then digital x-ray came along a few years later. 1999, I was one of the first dentists to put digital x-rays in. And I remember a lot of colleagues who didn't have the vision or didn't see how this would be advantageous. And I can tell from the questions they asked. They would ask me things like, "Okay, so you just spent $15,000 on a new digital x-ray system. Are you going to charge more for your x-rays?" And I would look at them and say no. And they would say, "Are you going to take more x-rays?" And I would say no. And so they scratch their head and they wonder how I'm going to justify this expense. And I said, "Well, if expense is all you're interested in," and I hadn't really thought about it, because to me this was a priceless transformation. It was kind of like that MasterCard Visa thing, you know, $3 for this, $5 for that, $10 for that, but an afternoon with your kid, you know, priceless kind of thing. And my vision was not having to hold little films on the fluorescent monitor to educate patients about the caries that were there, the little decay, explain to them what their treatment was, and they didn't get it. They might say they got it, but they didn't get it. You could tell by the success rate in treatment plan cases, patients accepting treatment. But somehow, when you blow that image up on a monitor, the full size, one tooth, the full size of a 21-inch monitor, which we had in all the operatories back in '99, all of a sudden that cavity or that root canal abscess looks like a cancer that's going to kill them, and they want that treatment done yesterday. And all of a sudden, you've just bumped up in front of that new car they need, in front of that vacation that they were planning. And we all know how discretionary dollars for dental care just somehow managed to fall down on the list. Well, I saw this as a great tool. And of course, expense-wise, I said to my friend, "Okay, let me explain it to you in terms you'll understand. How much do you spend a year on film? How much do you spend a year on chemicals? How much do you spend on new uniforms for assistants that spill fixing on their uniforms? And then again, what about the wasted time? What about 7, 8 minutes waiting for a film to come out of the automatic processor? And you've got to sit there and hear about Mrs. Jones' sick dog for 8 minutes, and you want to jump out the window. Wouldn't help me, my office on the ground floor. Anyhow, I became more productive. And it also fit in with the technology aspect that my patients came to expect. So it fit in with the mission of my practice, which is Dr. Zuckerberg employs the latest technologies. Now, technologies, and I'll say this several times, technology doesn't make you a better dentist. It can if you use it effectively and you learn which technologies to employ. But technology will give your patients the impression also that you are a better dentist, that you are on the cutting edge, and it will give you a competitive edge with your colleagues who are not employing the technologies. So how is this better, and how is this social media going to help us? First of all, cost right off the top. Most dentists I've interviewed spend as much as $10,000 a year on print advertising campaigns. Combinations of Yellow Pages, which is, you know, a real dollar sucker, and if you get into electronic media, like, you know, television and radio and stuff like that, you can spend a lot of money real quickly. Social media doesn't cost anything to set up, but you certainly do need to invest some dollars in either expertise in helping you set up a nice presence, maintaining your presence, and also promoting your presence. We'll discuss that. The ability to target demographically the audience you want is something that's unique to social media. Now, there are certain companies that claim that they can deliver addresses of people who are more affluent, or you can advertise on certain radio shows, like financial shows, which tend to target people who are more affluent, interested in finance. Facebook and the other social media companies give you the ability to do some incredible demographic targeting, and I'll go over that today also. And lastly, the one thing that I want you to take away from today, if you take away nothing else, is that this is the only, or this is the superior way for us to attract new patients based on word-of-mouth referrals. We all know the best kind of patients, the best kind of new patients we can get, are the ones who come from someone who comes highly recommended from an already satisfied patient who loves our work. They come into our office with a certain amount of trust inherent. Their good friend / family member loves our work and has given our recommendation. The rate of treatment plan, case acceptance, is much higher with patients who come in with a trust level that's already been established by virtue of the fact that someone that they know and trust utilizes us and is satisfied with their service. How can we get that in an electronic medium? That's going to be the #1 lesson for today. In the old days, and these things still occur to some extent, we relied on a very serendipitous method of acquiring patients from word of mouth. When my wife and I were moving to Dobbs Ferry, having an office in the house, I had the ability, and certainly in my early years, we actually had a line for the dental office that rang in our bedroom. And one Saturday, and I advertised 24-hour emergency care. Most people expect that to be an answering service or something that will get back to them at short notice. So you can imagine the surprise of the caller on the other end when at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night, I answered his call on the second ring. And I was quickly able to ascertain that this gentleman who had just moved up from Brooklyn to Westchester County had indeed, in fact, a real grade 1 dental emergency. He had a pulpal abscess that was, you know, the kind of abscess that you don't need aspirin, Tylenol, or whatnot. You need the closest pair of automobile pliers, and if you're numb enough, you can do the job yourself. And he was ready to jump out the window. So I said to him, well, you know where I am, gave him some directions, and a half an hour later, in my jeans and a t-shirt, I was opening tooth number 30 to start a root canal, and he walked out of the office 45 minutes later with pain relief, and I had won a patient for life. Now, not only did I win a patient for life, but this is one of those rare patients who actually is willing to broadcast your skills to their network of friends. A lot of times you'll do an amazing case on someone. You'll do a full mouth complex rehabilitation. You'll turn someone, who had real severe dental problems, or give someone a tremendous cosmetic improvement. And you almost expect that this patient, every time you're expecting new patients to come in, and you're looking for that name as a referral source because you did such great work on them. And yet, too often it doesn't happen. Well, with Zach, I think it probably went something like this. If you met Zach at a party for the first time and you didn't even know him, he'd extend his hand and say, "Hi, my name is Zach. Do you happen to need a new dentist?" And then out would come my business card. It was like they don't even know Zach and he's referring me. I had such an impact on his life over the next 10 years. I'd say Zach referred 40 to 50 new patients to the office. There are too few Zachs out there, and one of the worst days of my life in practice is when Zach went to Atlanta. But through Facebook and through social media, you have a chance to replicate that, what Zach did for you, what Zach did for me, without requiring your patient, your prospective new patient, to be in a physical situation where they can meet Zach or whomever, and a patient who's willing, upon hearing of their dental woes, to share your name, and of course it would help if they've got their card, your business card with them too. Here's an example of what my office page would look like, or does look like, on Twitter. And this is a listing of various posts that our office puts up. If you notice, it's not tremendously visual, but it's for someone who wants to read. There's a lot of information in there and links to find out more about a topic that they're interested in. Little short, 140 character or less blurbs about the message that you want to get out to your followers. And that's what they are called on Twitter. They're called people who are interested in your business, would be your followers. And all they have to do is say, "I want to follow this person." They have to find your page, of course, so you have to tell them you have a Twitter presence. And then they have to choose to follow you. Here's an example of what someone, in this case me, or my newsfeed looks like on Twitter. And the newsfeed in social media has come to an evolution where it's actually trying to replace the individual's copy of their daily newspaper or their daily news source with essentially the things in life that are most important to them. So in social media, you have networks of close friends, you have acquaintances, and you also have businesses that you've chosen to connect with and link up to. And your newsfeed becomes essentially, and depends on how well the particular venue or the particular social media company is able to give you the kind of information that is important to you in your newsfeed. It essentially becomes your news source. News items that are interesting to you. Things that your friends are doing, things that your family members are doing. Twitter also is most notably famous for developing their hashtag. Hashtag is a great feature which allows you to search things that are being said on a particular topic. Now, if you look up here, you'll see hashtag dental implants. So now I'm getting threads from not just people that I followed, but anyone on Twitter who has bothered to incorporate the hashtag dental implants into their post, and as such, allow their content to be easily searchable by anyone who is looking for information on dental implants. And if you want to be a dental implant factor in someone who's looking for a new dentist who can offer that service to them, you want to have a social media presence, and you want your related posts that have something to do with implant topics have that hashtag dental implants there. Now that's not the only topic you can put in. I actually first, before I did that, I put in just hashtag implants. And I was actually happy to see that the preponderance of the searches came up with dental implants. That probably wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. As a matter of fact, my wife and I came here, we were in Hawaii this week for a friend of ours' wedding. And someone said, well, why are you going all the way back to New York? And I said, well, I'm lecturing at an implant conference. And the woman scratched her head. I guess she didn't know much about dental implants. And she was wondering, well, you're a dentist. Why are you talking about implants? And then I realized that she was probably referring to another kind of implants. And yet here's a generic Google search. And I was really pleased to see that 80% of the posts on implants actually have to do with dentistry. 10 years ago, there probably would have been a lot more plastic surgery things up here.